Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about some of the little extras that are in Tanks of War. I'm not going to go over every single one of them. There is the rulebook you can download and take a look at. But some fun things that are in the game is whenever you roll a 95% or worse, what happens is your gun gets jammed. So you'll just put a little counter there saying gun jam. You actually have to spend 1 action point to remove that. And so these are not fun to have. The other thing is if you roll 5% or better, it's always a hit. And you get to add an extra d6 to your gun damage roll. And that can really come in handy. Let's take a look at one of the vehicles that a lot of players that play the Russians have really enjoyed trying to bring out. It's called the KV-1. This is one of the really heavy, actually one of the first heavy tanks in the war. You'll take a look at this. It's got a 433 on its hull. Its armor, you'll see the purple is a D8. Okay, they roll D8s for their armor, and they actually roll the red as a D10. Okay, very, very thick armor. Okay, not only on the front and sides, okay, but even on the rear you got 3d8 and you get to add a +1 to that roll. Great complement of ammo. Unfortunately, with the majority of the Russian vehicles, you're at a 40%. It does have some traits. Each vehicle is representative historically of how it actually performed. Some of the traits here is it's cumbersome, it has a penalty for move, it's got poor visibility, it suffers a reload penalty, and it's got a short barrel. So basically what that means is any target that is, let me zoom out here, 3 spaces or further away, if it says short barrel and it has a number next to it, you deduct that from your gun damage roll. Okay, so short barrels aren't fun, but take a look at his damage. It's 3d6 +1. And if you compare that to, let's say here, the Panzer II-C, he gets 2d4 and a d6 with only 3 hull. Okay, and some other neat little details that we added on here. You can take a look at the upper left. There's a date, it says 1940. So we wanted to keep these accurate in terms of when they came out. The game covers the first year of Operation Barbarossa. There's a variant where you could say, hey, let's just play with 1940 vehicles or 1941 vehicles and so forth. So that's another fun thing as well. Now you'll notice here there's a blank spot. We're going to put information here before the final release. This is going to be for soft targets. So we're going to be introducing soldiers and aircraft and lighter vehicles. So tanks can optionally use another gun value here in the future. Another thing we've got here is a rarity value. Tanks and vehicles come in common, uncommon, and rare. And so during the war, during certain periods of the war, let's say this model of vehicle, there's only a limited number produced. So we'll put a rare on that. And so what that means is you can only have one of these vehicles of that name on the battlefield at one time. If it is an uncommon, you can have 2 of that named vehicle at play at one time. If it's a common, like this Panzer II-C, which they just pumped out, you'll see if you can see the common, you can have an unlimited number of that. That adds another balance to the game that we thought would just be great, because it prevents players from saying, well, I'm just going to deploy KV-1, 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 KV-1. But historically it didn't make sense, and gameplay wise it doesn't make sense as well. And also by adding a point cost that is reflective of its armor, its weapon, what it can do, also gives a balance to the game. So as a player, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions. Do I want to bring out a bunch of these smaller vehicles to go up against a larger vehicle, or do I want to go mano a mano and say, hey, here's my better tank against your better tank, and let's just slug it out, see what happens. You're going to also want to play cards, like we talked about, like, critical cards. There's a Panzer Outflank card. You're really going to need to use your complement of cards and be wise in what you buy each turn, so you have the capabilities to go against these better tanks, or a player that may have a better tactical deployment situation that's in their favor. Terrain plays a big part in Tanks of War. It's really fun. The rules, if you want to download the rules, it talks a little bit about that. When you first start the game, we'll recommend you take away all the terrain. So it's just basically open fields. And as you get a little bit more comfortable with the rules, you add in some of the terrain. So for example, the hill gives you a bonus to attack and to see. The woods let you gives you a bonus for hiding. So when someone's trying to spot you, it's harder for them to do so and whatnot. And it gives you some bonuses for cover and whatnot. You'll notice these icons here basically tell you how many movement points it takes you to get in there. Now we're looking to change out the art on these. We either will keep it realistic like this, or maybe do kind of like a realistic art. So we're going to be asking the community what they prefer, and we're going to be changing out as well the what this looks like. And this does come on really thick card stock, so you can really customize what you want your terrain to look like. And there's also options where you can put multiple boards together to have this very, very grand battle. And I think this was mentioned before, you can really scale what kind of battles you want. You can play quick games like 25 points or 50 points, 100 points. You determine how long you want to play the game. And so it really gives that flexibility. So, and just some last things, comes with supply 30 cards, supply 20, supply 10. I forgot to mention this, but each purchase phase, player can pick up a free supply 5 and add that to their deck if they wish. And so, anyhow, that's just a little bit of the overview of Tanks of War. There's a ton of options that players can do. There's only really 5 turns, and they go pretty fast. But it's really how do you react to the situation at hand? You've got enemy vehicles coming down the left flank. Do you try to hold the position by hiding in the shrubs? Do you try to take the hill so you can get the side shots in, or do you wheel around to the right? There's a lot of great options and choices. And then the Germans have unique cards to them, and the Russians have unique cards to them. So there's different play styles, and it's really complementary when you have the German, I guess, viewpoint of the war and how they interact in the game, and how the Russians do. Sometimes the Russian players, they'll buy swarm tanks, and there's a lot of swarm abilities in the Russians, but they also have really good, decent tanks. So yeah, there's a lot of variety and a lot of fun. So we hope you liked this overview of Tanks of War. And if you want more information, please download the rules and take a look at it. Like any other game, you play it a few times and it becomes pretty easy to play. But mastering the game and going up opponents who have new strategies and new ways of approaching the battle really is what keeps Tanks of War a very replayable game each time you play it. So thanks so much, guys, and I know it was a long video, but that's Tanks of War. We'll see you on the battlefield.